I'm John Hughes, and I'm very pleased to be here with Tim Vanfield with you, Ross Hartley's Finding the Front.
Welcome to Euros Hartley's Finding the Front, where we get to know the people who front some of Western Australia's leading companies, providing you with real insights into the way they think and approach things, both in business and in life. So get the volume adjusted in your car or your headphones sorted and settle in for a great story. Here's your host, Tim Banfield.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Euros Hartley's Finding the Front. Before we begin, for those listeners who aren't aware of Euros Hartley's, we are a leading, proudly Western Australian, ASX-listed, diversified financial services company. We specialise in the provision of private wealth management, corporate finance, institutional sales, and targeted research services. Our private wealth division combines wealth management, strategic advice, and stockbroking. Our advisors devise wealth management plans and investment strategies designed to enhance your financial well-being. This team thrives on excellent client service, delivering results, and building strong relationships that endure. If you'd like to learn more about Euros Hartley's and the services we provide, please don't hesitate to contact us or visit our website at www.euroshartleys.com. Well, what an absolute privilege it is to have this special guest on the show. Our special guest, as you heard in the intro, is John Hughes, founder of the John Hughes Group and icon of the Australian automotive industry. John provides his legendary insights into lessons in life, loving what you do, being extraordinary, sales and marketing, and building, growing and maintaining his automotive business that has grown into a household name. This conversation has many, many valuable takeaways all the way through as John reflects on life and what it takes to succeed in business. So without further ado, it gives me an enormous pleasure to introduce to Euros Hartley's Finding the Front, the founder of the John Hughes Group and all-round legend, Mr. John Hughes. Hi, John, and thank you very much for joining us on Euros Hartley's Finding the Front. It is a real privilege, and I can't believe we've got you in the studio. Thanks a lot for joining us, John.
Thank you, Jim. I'm very happy to be here. Can't wait.
John, it goes without saying, but you've had a remarkable life, including a wonderful family, daughter Jo with us here today, and you've built an iconic business that is a household name amongst Western Australians. You stand tall amongst the best as your own man who did it your own way and who have inspired many. It is unbelievable you're sitting here to be able to have this chat. You know, you've got so much to impart and so much to show and illustrate in terms of building a career and building a life. But I know it wasn't a straightforward journey, and thanks for being able to share it with us. But to get to where you found your real passion in life, your business, just tell us a little bit about how it started and what shaped you. And you know, you were born in Beaconsfield back in 1935 near Fremantle.
In those days, Beaconsfield, what you call, the economists would have called a low socio-economic demographic. What it meant was we all had no money. It was a poor area, and we lived there. My grandmother had the shop on the corner of Lefroy and Hampton Road. A lot of people in Fremantle would know it. It's still there. It's a pizza shop now, opposite the Beaky State School. I remember I used to have a cup, and I'd put it on the ground outside the shop, and I'd sing for money.
You're kidding.
That would have been 6 or 7 people to put a few pennies in. I remember that. In 1945, my father went to the war. In 1945, he came back, and we had a war service home, and we moved to May Street, East Fremantle.
Was your mum I understand your dad was a bus driver before, and then your mum was a bus conductor. Was this after he came back from the war?
Prior to, yes, he was a bus driver. My mother was a bus conductress. I look back on it, Tim, often thinking, not often, but I do frequently. I look back on this. If I'd have been born to a middle-class family, if I'd have gone to a private school, if we could have afforded it, if I'd have got a university degree, I wouldn't be where I am today. Now, I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that's the way it worked out. Now, my father was a happy-go-lucky, wanting to be well-loved by all his mates. After the war, when he came back, briefly, he had a service station in South Fremantle. On Mondays, mates would come in and say, "Fill her up, Joe, and we'll settle with you on Friday." He went broke.
Right.
It was too forgiving. And without realising it, when I was growing up, I didn't know by any means what I was going to be, but I surely deep down knew what I did not want to be, and I didn't want to be where I came from. Not that it was all that bad, but it was a long way short of being satisfying or fulfilling. So, yeah, we had, after the war, then my father got a job as a fitter and turner at the Fremantle Harbour Trust.
Right.
I remember he earned £8 a week. He gave my mother just enough to feed myself and two younger brothers. The rest of it went down the pub. My father liked his alcohol. And whatever I've got, where did it come from? I can't pinpoint it. I can't tell you. I mean, when I went to school, well, first of all, let me tell you, I went to a convent in King Street, East Fremantle, when I was living in East Fremantle, two younger brothers. My second youngest brother, who worked for me for a little while, he's passed on recently. My third youngest brother, the third one, had schizophrenia, and he died of an early age. Why wasn't I the one with schizophrenia? Why wasn't I the second? Why was I the oldest? You can't answer that.
Yeah.
You can't put your finger on that. But I remember my mother kept me in that convent too long. Lessons you learn in life. And I've never, ever forgotten this one. I'll carry it with me to my grave, and I've shared it with hundreds, if not thousands of people. By the time I went to that big, rough, tough school, Christian Brothers in Fremantle, the boys had all been together for a number of years, and I was the odd one out, and it didn't help that I used to stutter and stammer somewhat in those days. I was nervous.
Yeah.
Wasn't shy, but I was a bit nervous. But I remember something, Tim, I've never forgotten. We're in a physics laboratory, a room with benches down both sides and one along the back. 26 boys in the class. I happened to be up the back in the right-hand corner. We're involved in dissolving some powder in a liquid in a test tube. It was called precipitation. Some of the powder was left over, and you had to calculate arithmetically how much of the powder was left. 26 boys in the class. I'm up the back in the right-hand corner. The brother calls out, "I want you to write your answer down. Don't show your answer to anybody, and don't speak till I point to you." That's the way they used to run schools in those days, with discipline.
Yeah.
26 boys in the class. I'm up back in the corner. I write down .001. A few minutes later, everybody got their answer written down. "Yes, brother, don't speak till I point to you." Points to the boy on the first bench, left-hand bench. "Call out your answer, .01. Second boy, .01. Third boy, .01. Fourth boy, ducks of the class the previous year, .01. .01, .01, .01, right-hand bench, .01, 25 times till it comes to the new boy in the corner. He said, "Call out your answer." And Tim, for some unknown reason, that shy, nervous, stuttering youth in that big, rough, tough school, I stuttered out .001, and they all turned around and jeered at me. the dummy, the new boy in the corner.
Yeah.
Tim, I was right. Taught me at a very early age, you stand up for yourself. You're not a pushover. Because the first sheep bleats out .01 and the next one points at .01, they couldn't all possibly have been wrong. It's too easy for people, particularly Australians, to feel comfortable. They don't like putting their head up in case they get knocked or in case they get, I don't know, picked on. Put your head down and don't be different. Well, I've always, since then, dared to be different. You know, you ask somebody, well, let's talk about me, for example, all right? John, what do you like playing golf? Oh, I'm not very good. I don't play golf. Can you swim? No, I'm a poor swimmer. What do you like in the car business? Oh, not bad. John, what do you like in the car business? Well, I reckon I'm the best in the world. Yeah, without deluding yourself. But people don't. They play themselves down, you know.
Yeah.
What do you like at that? Oh, I'm not bad. And the wife will say, oh, what do you mean? He's just won the championship last week. Oh, I'm not bad. So it taught me I'm a .001, not a .01, and I've never forgotten that.
What a story. It certainly has left a mark on you, and you've carried that through. And has that been like a principle that you've just followed the whole time? Always set yourself apart from the crowd, always put your head up, do what you think's right.
Yes, you've got to conform. You can't be too much of a radical. But, you know, the best word in the English language in my book is why. You go to somebody, give an example. Long time ago, I went in my service department one morning, 3 people sitting there, a woman and a young guy, well-dressed with a suit, and they're obviously waiting for their car or whatever. So I said to the receptionist, she was busy. Why are those people waiting? She looked at me a bit irritably. She was, oh, Mr. Hughes, they're waiting for the courtesy bus. I said, oh. I said, why are they waiting for the courtesy bus? Oh, Mr. Hughes, because the courtesy bus isn't here. I said, oh. I look at the clock. Courtesy bus was due at 9:20. It was now 9:30. I said, so I walked over and I said, hands up those of you who would like to go into the city. The young guy put his hand up. I went into the service manager's office, spoke to the warranty clerk, who was none too happy, not pleased, because I said, Neville, grab the service manager's car and drive this young chap to the top end of St George's Terrace. That wasn't his role, you see. He's a warranty clerk. He doesn't drive people to the terrace. And a week later, I got the best letter I have ever received, and I can recite it to you. This is 30 years ago, if not longer. Word for word, I've still got it. Mr. Hughes, you don't know me, but I'm the young chap for whom you arranged a lift into the city the other morning. When I was at school in England, Harrow School had the motto of manners maketh man. And I used to think that was pretty wimpy, she said, particularly when it came to sport. Now that I'm older and hopefully wiser, I'm starting to appreciate the benefit of good manners. Mr. Hughes, too many people think good manners are a prerogative of those who are not busy. Thank you for disproving that theory. How good is that?
Beautiful letter.
How good is that?
Yeah, fantastic.
So I question, why?
Yeah.
Why? All of a sudden, why are we doing it this way? Oh, Mr. Hughes, we've always done it that way. Why have we always done it that way? Well, I was taught to do it that way. Who taught you to do it that way? The one who was doing it before. Who taught him or her?
John, just coming back to school, when you got out of school, did you actually know what you wanted to do?
Look, my grandmother on my father's side was a tough old lady. She kept saying to me in year 12, I got to year 12, get yourself down to the customs department in Fremantle. You never get sacked from the customs department.
Right.
It was all about job security. Now, I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew I didn't want to be in the bloody customs department.
Yep.
Now, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I probably should have been, but we couldn't afford it. I had to work full time. I couldn't afford to be a part-time student and go to a law school. So I applied for a couple of jobs as an accountant and wasn't successful. This was the days, I think, long before computers. I don't know. I probably couldn't add up, I think, but I never got the job.
Yeah.
You see, unbelievably, but for 4 days, I could have been a school teacher. I rang up the education department and said, I'm interested in becoming a school teacher. They said, son, the guy said, I remember his name, Donovan. Son, how many subjects did you get in your leaving? I said, I got all my 12. Oh, he said, you would have been a Monty, but you're 4 days too late.
Oh.
Applications have closed.
Oh.
I mean, imagine. But I needed to get a job.
Yeah.
So finally, I got offered a job at the end of January for one that I'd applied end of December, a personnel cadet in the Department of External Territories in Canberra.
So you looked interstate for a job?
Anywhere.
Anywhere, yep.
I didn't want to leave. I'm 17 years and 2 months at Callow, not shy still, but reasonably introspective youth. Anyway, I got on a plane, a DC-3. I'd never been on a plane in my life before. I landed in Canberra at 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. Didn't know where I was staying. Didn't know where I was working. Nobody to meet me. If I'd have had the money, if my parents had had the money, I'd have got the next plane back home to Perth, but I was stuck.
Yep.
So I finished up working as a personnel cadet in the Department of External Territories in Canberra, and I did part-time university. I did psychology, political science, and English. But after 1 year there, national service was in. Being a Western Australian in Canberra, they didn't know where to put me for a 3-month camp. You had to do 3 months every year.
Yeah.
So they sent me to Puckapunyal. Pucka, it's just outside of Seymour in Victoria.
Yeah.
Now, Tim, I went in a boy, and 3 months later I came out a man. I got discipline in my life from 2 prime sources, Christian Brothers in Fremantle and National Service.
For 3 months.
And I've applied discipline to myself and all of my staff ever since. Without overdoing it, I'm not anal, but I'm a disciplinarian. I know what I want, and I expect it to be done. So I did that for 18 months, and I was terribly homesick. I shared a communal bathroom. I lived in a place called Reed House. I was in E52. I mean, I hated it, and I tossed it in.
John, from what you're telling me, this 18-month period, while it didn't break you, it certainly has made you stronger.
You hit it on the head. It didn't break me, it made me.
Yeah.
I didn't realise at the time the impact it was having on me, or the impact it was going to have on me in my future life. It's all part of your formative years,
Yeah. Really did shape you.
Yeah.
And the upbringing with that and then coming back to Perth really stood you in a place where, right, okay, I've got a skill set now. I sort of understand a bit about myself.
Yeah, I didn't think that profoundly about it. All I knew I needed to get a job.
Another job, yeah.
And I was really looking for an accountant's job. But middle of the year, jobs weren't that easy to get. So I saw an advertisement in the paper, wanted clerk, Atwood Motors, Stirling Street, Perth. I'll talk about Stirling Street in a minute. So I applied for the job. I walk into this big showroom with new cars, and I was overwhelmed. And they said, "Oh, son, the job is not here. It's 200 yards or something down the road." It was a broken down old horse stable.
Right.
That the company, Atwood Motors, they were They sold a car called a Vauxhall, but this was their panel beating shop. And in those days, when you had a problem with your car, you'd get a dolly and have you go bang and crash and now you take the guard off and put a new one on. Not then. Noisy, dirty, dusty. Anyway, I did that for 6 months. And at the end of that year, I got a job as an assistant accountant at a menswear store. And when I told Atwoods I was leaving, the sales manager came down. See, this is how things work.
Yeah.
He said, we think you've got a bit of potential. How would you like to be a sales cadet?
Hey, that was the start.
And the salesmen all had 3-button suits and drove around in new cars. I thought, wow, this is for me.
Yeah.
I never got a 3-button suit. That was a big deal in those days, the 3-button suit. I never got a new car. I had a 1936 Austin 10 with one window winder handle. And all my mates in the back, all my scruffy mates would say, John, pass the community window winder handle.
So I can do my window down.
So, but let me tell you a story now. I used to drive in my Austin 10 from East Fremantle up to Atwoods every day. I did it for 18 months. Then Railway Parade in West Leederville was a very large building, a company called Plaistowes, Plaistowes. They made confectionery. They were very well known. They were Australia-wide, I think.
Yes.
But the L in Plaistowes had dropped. The screws had rusted, and the L, instead of being like that, was like that. I drove that past that L every day, 5 days a week for 18 months. The L never moved. Nobody saw it. And within about 12 months, the place shut down.
Yes.
A chap came to see me some years after that. He said, John, I got a friend. He's bought these very latest engineering, freezing compartments you put in. He's got a deli, and you put your vegetables in there, and it keeps them remarkably fresh, and it's the latest thing out of America. And I said, yeah, all right, that's all good. He came to me about a year later, and he said, John, his cabbages are wilting. A year later, that company went broke. I make sure my L is never looped, and I make very sure my cabbages don't wilt.
Yep. Yep. Lessons. With that perspective in mind, when did you decide that, and I've done some research around this, John, with that perspective in mind, when did you decide it was time that you went out on your own?
Oh, I've been married twice. I got married for the first time. I was 32. I was running a large used car operation called Motorama.
But that was a flow-on from Atwoods, was it?
Yes, precisely. Yes, from Atwoods, it then went into Atwoods Motorama.
Yes.
Yes. And I was their general manager, earning big money in those days, but I was spending a lot of money too. I was
having fun.
Oh, yeah. Working hard and playing hard. And I got married at 32, and I borrowed the deposit on the house. So I was strapped up. A few months after that, I saw in that advertised for auction a service station site at 196 Albany Highway, Victoria Park. Just over the causeway in Shriverton Road, Victoria Park.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, used that a few times. I didn't go to the auction because I couldn't afford it to buy it. I rang up the agent next morning, rather perversely hoping they'd tell me it had been sold. I used to wake up in the morning with a knot in my gut. Had all the tests, nothing wrong, but the knot in my gut persisted. Until finally I made an offer to buy that property at 196 Albany Highway. Fairy tale terms, I made them an offer they couldn't possibly accept. 5% deposit, whatever the price was, 5% deposit, 60 days, another 5% 60 days, full settlement 90 days after that. Fair retail terms. They couldn't possibly accept it. I got the monkey off my back. Well, bugger me, they rang me next day and said, it's yours. So I had to get my briefcase and walk up and down St George's Terrace and borrow 120% of what I needed. But when I'd made that, what turned out to be, and I've made a lot of big decisions financially, overwhelmingly the biggest financial decision I've made in my entire life, borrowing 120% when I didn't have any money, that knot in my gut went away.
Which is unusual. You'd think it would tighten.
And that's, John, your body is telling you you're not destined to work for other people.
Yeah.
Now, Tim, your body is your best doctor. You listen to it, it talks to you.
Yes. And it spoke to you then.
Yeah, very clearly.
Yeah, yeah. And what a decision that was.
And I nearly went broke before I started. The builder was slow in getting the yard up. I had to make the first payment to the finance company. I didn't have the money. Fortunately, I had an accountant called Bill Corley, who had an accountant in Hong Kong called Bill Wiley. Bill Wiley had a son-in-law who had a car yard on the corner of 6th Avenue and Beaufort Street, wasn't going well. Through my connection with Bill Corley, Bill Wiley in Hong Kong, I got a lease on that yard in 6th Avenue and Beaufort Street. I took, with one other salesman, I went there for 1 month, bought the cars, reconditioned the cars, sold the cars, worked, 12, 14 hours a day, whatever. Sold 92 cars in our first month, and that gave me the cash flow to keep Victoria Park.
To fund
going.
Victoria Park. And now look where Victoria Park is, but we'll get to that. But tell me, just out of the interest, walking St George's Terrace to raise the money, did people see anything around your vision? Like, could they see that's a potential car yard opportunity?
Only one. Commercial and General Acceptance, KAGA. I'll tell you a story about that. They backed me.
Yep.
A fella called Gordon Macbeth. I'll never forget that. I think he's long gone now. And so I kicked off. All right, well, now I might tell you a story. I might lead into, I'm ranging around a bit. You can pull me back into line, okay?
Yeah, no, sounds good.
All right, I'll get the sequence right. Behind me at 196 Albany Highway was a property at 49 Shepparton Road, which was leased by International Harvester. It was a truck repair division. They used to have their truck trays jutting out into Shepparton Road, which you could do in those days.
Yes.
And Alan Bond, who I knew very well, he married my cousin. I owe a fair bit to Alan. He said to me, John, do you know International Harvester are pulling out of that site and is coming up for sale? I said, no, I didn't know. He said, why don't you ring Gordon Macbeth? Because they owned it, or they had a lien over it.
Yes.
So I rang up Gordon and I said, Gordon, could this site be available? This is my prime site now, where I've got Ford, Mitsubishi and Hyundai, 49 Shepparton Road all the way along.
Yeah, know it.
Didn't have it at that stage. Oh, he said, John, yeah, but there's a lot to be done yet. Do you have an interest? I said, yeah. He said, all right. He said, I'll keep it in mind. Next Sunday afternoon, we're around Bondi's place by the pool. He said, did you talk to Gordon? I said, yes. He said, what did he say? He said he'd keep it in mind. Alan, who left school at 14, said to me, John, did you put your interest in writing? I said, no, I didn't. He said, put it in writing. So on Monday, I confirmed my interest to Macbeth. Right. 6 months later, I get a phone call. Gordon Macbeth here, John. Yes, Gordon. You still interested in that site? Yes, Gordon. He said, we've had a lot of interest. But he said, I believe we have a moral, if not a legal, obligation to offer it to you first. That's why I finished up with 49 Shepparton Road, because Alan Bond strongly recommended I put my interest in writing.
Gosh, and it paid dividends.
Certainly paid dividend.
So Gordon Macbeth was the person who enabled you to make your first purchase,
Yes,
the
and
service
also
station,
the second
and then the
major one.
second. So he's a pretty important guy in your life.
Yes, it is, and as I say, I think he's no longer there. He was in Melbourne, but
Yeah.
he was employed by KAGA, Commercial and General Acceptance. They're no longer there either. But that was just steps in my direction as I grew bigger and bigger. Now, let me tell you, I separated from my first wife. Starting again, after about a year, I had 2 senior people working with me, and I thought I wanted to spend a week together as a bonding exercise. So I thought we'd go to Hong Kong, Hong Kong, Perth, Hong Kong.
Yes.
I was going well enough. I didn't particularly want to fly economy, but I wasn't going that well that I wanted to fly them business class. So I had a quandary. Do I take a separate flight? That's not the purpose of the bonding. Do I bring them up the front, or do I sit down the back? Now, incredible how this works out. I decided to sit up the back. Cathay Pacific, Perth, Singapore, crew change, Singapore to Hong Kong. 39,000 feet, the curtain parts. This 23-year-old Filipino flight stewardess comes down the aisle. I didn't have the window seat. I didn't have the middle seat. I had the aisle seat. If I hadn't taken that flight, if I didn't have the aisle seat, I wouldn't have been married to my wife now for 44 years. You work that out.
How beautiful.
Because I was able to chat her up, you see. So I had the aisle. I won't go into that.
But that, as you say, has been such a massive part of your life, Margarita, and what you guys have done together over 46 years. As I said, it's lovely having Joe in the studio with us, and that must be very special.
Yes, we've got 2 children. We've got Joanna and Jeremy. Joanna has got a law degree, got an MBA, and is on a number of boards and chairpersons on a number. She's involved in the business actively. Our son Jeremy's also got a law degree, but he lives in America. He's not involved in the business. And they've got, Joanna's got 3 children. Jeremy's got 2 children. We're very proud of all of them. They've all turned out very well. Now, things are very good. It's worked out extremely well. And it's taken a while, but Margarita's finally adjusted to the fact. You see, a lot of people don't understand this. They don't say it to my face, but I'm sure they think, well, you silly old bugger, what are you doing still working? People don't understand, well, very few do, that my business is my hobby. It keeps me alive.
Yes.
I can't wait to come to the office every day. To me, the worst day of the week is Sunday, because we're shut.
Yes.
I don't play golf. I don't play bridge. I haven't got a caravan. I don't race horses. I haven't got a property at Margaret River. The thought of gardening would fill me with dread. I just love what I do. I can't wait to get there in the mornings. And I'm very fortunate. I'm very focused. If I had to give anybody any advice in running a business, well, I can give them a lot of advice. I often get asked that, John, what does it take? Well, look, I tell you what, just to start, I'm in my service department about a month back. People are waiting about 9:30 in the morning. People are sitting there waiting for their cars. And I chat with them. MBWA, management by walking around. If somebody were to ask me, John, can you encapsulate in 2 words what's it take to run a successful business? It's well nigh impossible. There's many factors. But if I had to, just 2 words, be there. Just be there. Anyway, this young chap came up, late 20s, early 30s. He was waiting. Mr. Hughes, have you got a moment? So we went and sat at the back. This is an interesting one. Never been asked this before. Mr. Hughes, what does it take to have a presence?
Yes.
A presence. I thought about it and I said, a lot of self-confidence. You have to feel good about yourself without deluding yourself. You look in the mirror every night or every morning and you say, I'm a good person. Don't look at your shortcomings. I'm a good person.
Self-belief.
I'm a good husband, a good wife, a good son, a good daughter, a good whatever. I'm a hard worker, I'm honest, I'm loyal. I'm a good person. Feel good about yourself. That's having a presence.
Makes a lot of sense. And how did he respond?
Hopefully with appreciation.
Well, presence is quite a good way to launch into how your business evolved. Okay, it became the John Hughes Group. And that and it's well documented, you've now got 9 new car brands. You've got a huge pre-owned vehicle operation. I read somewhere that you coined the term pre-owned.
I did.
Tell us about that.
Well, I wanted to get rid of the stigma and the image of used cars. What do you do? Oh, I sell used cars. It was down there on the bottom of the scale with, dare I say it, lawyers and politicians and real estate agents. I don't know who's down the bottom. Yeah. Used cars. I wanted to try and elevate it, pre-owned cars. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came up and I changed it to pre-owned cars, and that's one thing that I've done.
Well, that obviously became a big part of the business. And look, just going through some of the key points, but you took over Skipper Bailey Motor Company, which really became the well-known Skipper Mitsubishi. You were the first importer of Korean cars into Australia. And I understand, just given my research, that Alan Bond had a bit to do with that in the early days as well. Is that right?
I had a knock on my door, a young chap called Danny Fisher. Said, Mr. Hughes, can I have a minute of your time? I said, yes. He said, I've been to Korea and I've got the franchise for a car called a Hyundai, and they've given me the franchise. So God knows how he got it. He was a motor body builder. 1986 this was. But for sheer persistence, there's a lesson for anybody. He kept knocking on their door. He kept going to Korea. And finally, I think they said to get rid of him, get yourself a big financial brother and you can have the distribution for the whole of Australia for our car.
Unbelievable.
So Danny Fisher went up and down St. George's Terrace, cap in hand. Nobody wanted to know him. He got to Bondi's office. Alan said, get John Hughes involved and I'll be involved. So we started Bond Motors Sales. Alan had, Bond Corp had 50%, I had 25, Fisher had 25, and away we went. And we were the Australian distribution for then Hyundai. I came up with a TV ad, corny thing. I said hi to Hyundai. I cringe now. We're now calling it Hyundai and all of that.
Well, you went on. I mean, if we just go back with Mitsubishi, you're consistently ranked as WA's #1 Mitsubishi.
And in Australia for a long time too,
dealership. But in Australia for Hyundai, you were like the world's.
For 6 years, I was the world's biggest selling Hyundai dealer. We went to Istanbul.
Right.
In Turkey, forget what year it was. 130 dealers from 100 different countries, all in the big auditorium. And the #1 guy for Hyundai was there. And they started going through the names. Austria, down to Venezuela, Uruguay, whatever. Didn't mention Australia. I knew then I was in it. And then they said, the world's biggest selling Hyundai dealer for whatever year it was is Mr. John Hughes of Perth, Western Australia.
And everyone went, where's that?
A big moment. So I got up and I said a few words. Listen to this. I come down and a couple of Yanks, Americans, who were really cheesed off.
Yeah.
They came up to me and they said, how many stores have you got? They call them stores over there. I said, I got one. So they slunk away with their head between their knees. That was a big moment for me.
A huge moment.
6 years, I was the world's biggest selling Hyundai dealer. Not by percentage, total numbers.
Total numbers. 6 years in a row. They see that is
Not bad,
unbelievable.
Not bad out of Perth.
Out of Perth, all right. You know, these things, they happen for a reason, but, you know, you went from there. It was 1998, you went into Volkswagen and you opened John Hughes Volkswagen. And then following years, it's interesting to see how Fisher ended up with the distribution rights for Hyundai in the early days. But, you know, you look at this and you've got now Ford, Kia, Jeep, MG, LDV, and you're the first importer of the Australian Chinese passenger car. Is it Chery?
Yeah, you've got Chery and now JQ, which is a division of Chery, yes.
How do these agreements evolve, John? You know, like you've got to be right place, right time.
Reputation.
Or reputation. Yep.
Reputation. They know another one coming is Geely. I'll
Yes.
get that as well. My problem is finding locations to display them.
Yes.
Not all properties are zoned correctly. Councils don't want car dealerships everywhere. Reputation. I mean, we've done an outstanding job with Mitsubishi, an outstanding job with Hyundai.
MG, Australia top selling.
Yes, still Australia's top-selling MG dealer. And they come knocking on your door. They
Yes.
do, you know,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
And it does come down to space for you.
Oh, yes, I've got a huge problem with space.
Yeah.
I really do. You may not think so because I got 100,000 square metres at Wellspool. You put a drone on Wellspool, you can't see the area for cars. I've got 3,500 cars everywhere, jammed in. But you think, oh, you got plenty of room. You don't, you know, particularly for display and selling. You've got to be zoned correctly.
Right.
And that's the hard part. So we moved to Wellspool across the road. We used to be Cars for You. That's ours. Then we went to Wangara. Then we went to Rockingham. Now, we've also got We Want Your Wheels. You see that advertised?
I know We Want Your Wheels. I've actually sold a couple of cars through We Want Your Wheels.
Well, that's me.
They were outstanding.
Yeah, you see, look, I sell over 1,000 used cars, pre-owned cars. I sell over 1,000 pre-owned cars a month. I've got to get them from somewhere.
Yes.
I don't trade enough in to be able to sell 1,000. I've got to buy them locally and interstate. I've got 25 buyers who do nothing else all day, every day, but buy cars. And we advertise We Want Your Wheels to buy cars. Yes Loans, you heard of Yes Loans?
Yes.
We work harder to say yes more often. That's me as well. Yeah, we're branching out.
Well, you have branched out. I mean, you've got, apart from the new and the pre-owned car operations, you've also got now the external or peripheral parts of it: insurance, finance broking, which is the Yes.
Got a finance company, Sovereign Credit.
Yeah, extended warranties, underwriting
yes,
that.
all of that.
Tyres, batteries, roadside assistance,
Yep.
mobile
Yep.
service vans.
Yep.
And I even read trucks to transport vehicles.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
so it's a full vertically integrated operation.
Correct.
As you've grown, you're employing some 500 staff now?
600.
600. I actually made a call through to John Hughes a couple of weeks ago. I was looking at a Ranger, the new hybrid coming out, and your guy answered the phone. He was outstanding. And he told me in amongst conversation that many of your staff, I said, how long have you been there? And he said, around 7 or 8 years or something like that. And he said that many of your staff were there for up to 20, if not longer.
Oh, yeah.
And it really told me, through the confidence and the enthusiasm he had for his role and talking about his colleagues, that it was a special environment. It had a culture that really did resonate with them. You've grown that over time, John. Do you want to give us a bit of an insight into that?
Well, you lead by example. It's not do as I say, it's do as I do. Seriously, 600 people, nobody picks up more rubbish off the floor than I do. I pick up cigarette butts.
Yep.
Not to say so much to keep the place clean, but if I do it, I expect them to do it. I've got a chamois. I keep saying to them, when's the last time you wet your chamois and wiped over a few cars instead of leaving it stuck away in the bottom drawer? As I say, I go to my service department every Friday morning and I sit and I talk to people. I go there's a dozen people sitting down. 8 or 10 of them are playing with these, what do you call them? Computers, Google, what are they? I don't have a computer. Huh? I'm old school.
Yeah.
And I'll say to them, they're all sitting there and reading this. I'll say, what did we do before we had these things?
The mobile phones.
They all look at me, yeah. I say, we'd talk to each other, wouldn't we? And they all look at me and smile. And I sit down and I talk. You talk about ringing up a phone. Nobody gets questioned when they ring up looking for me or anybody else.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to Bill Smith, please. Oh, yes, may I ask who's calling? Can I ask what firm or organisation you represent? What is the nature of your business? No. Can I speak to John Hughes? Yes. Bang.
Yep.
John Hughes. I pick it up.
Yeah. And it's clearly rubbed off on the rest of the workforce.
And it keeps my finger on the pulse. I know what's going on.
Now, talking about fingers on the pulse, your branding, marketing, your advertising, you are the king. You've come over for many years putting yourself out there, representing yourself, developing trust within the largely Western Australian public around doing business with you to buy a vehicle. And I just want to go through these, but maybe you could give me a rendition. But the first one is, I stand behind every car I sell. That's a ripper.
Yeah, some people say, some smarties say, what about Mr. Hughes? I put it in reverse. Choose your dealer before you choose your car.
Got that?
I want your business. I'm prepared to pay for it. WA's most trusted car dealer. Is it true? Absolutely. Yeah.
In times of uncertainty, it pays to deal with someone you know you can totally trust and someone you know you can totally rely on.
Yeah, my reputation is your guarantee. They're all mine. I don't employ any script writers. They're all mine.
Oh, it's wonderful. I was looking through the post and...
Oh, the testimonials.
And I could not help but pull it out. And for the listener, I've got this double-page spread of literally comments from all the people that have done business with John, and it took up 2 pages.
Well, that's only a selection, of course.
I'm sure it is, but there's a number there. And
just read one out, anyone at random.
Okay, I've got F. Elsgood from Manning. Don was friendly, knowledgeable, and not pushy, making the whole experience easy and enjoyable. J. Ordell from Wooroloo. My partner and I had the pleasure of dealing with Han from John Hughes when buying our new car. Han was very helpful right from the start and answered any and all questions. He went above and beyond to make sure we made the right decision and made the whole process a breeze. We couldn't be happier with our purchase and would highly recommend John Hughes.
Doesn't get better than that,
It doesn't get better than that. But the beauty of it is you've got this big tagline at the bottom, my reputation is your guarantee. The proof is in the feedback. When you went about elevating your business and that of the car industry, in essence, as you did it, tell us little things that were important to you to get across to generate a business that's now turning over, 15,000 cars a year? 22,000 cars a year. So that's an enormous number of cars. People have gravitated to what you're doing. What were the key points when you look at these taglines? Obviously, it comes from the heart.
Be very passionate about what you do. Love what you do. I'd hate to be in a position where I have to go to work. Advice to anybody who hates Mondays is to get another job. Look forward to it. Now, it's easier if it's your own business. Would I have the same passion and desire and focus and discipline if I put my hand out every Friday and got an envelope? Possibly not. But I would certainly have more of that passion and focus and discipline than anybody else who put their hand out on a Friday. If somebody listening to this is interested in working for themselves, and not everybody does and not everybody should. Some people are destined for it, some people aren't. Best advice I can give you is to don't go into business underprepared. Go into business about which you've had some previous experience. You work for 3 to 4 years in that industry, working for somebody else, getting to understand it and building connections. Secondly, don't go in undercapitalised because you won't make any money for 12 or 18 months.
Yes.
Takes a while to build up. And thirdly, get correct accounting advice. I get people come to me for advice and they say, oh, John, you know, I did $10,000 last month. Oh, good. But that's their turnover. I said, what's your bottom line? What's your bottom line? Oh, what's your rent? What's your advertising? What's your cost? They look at the $10,000. They don't look at the $2,000, which is the bottom line. So it's not for everybody, and it's a huge decision to make to go into business for yourself. But if successful, it's enormously rewarding. But don't feel bad about yourself if you don't have your own business. If you're working with other people, just be the best of those you're working with. I say to my people, look, how would you like to be known to be extraordinary? Oh, John, come on, me? Little old me, extraordinary, come on. Extraordinary salesman, extraordinary interviewer, extraordinary scientist, extraordinary sportsman. Oh, no, that's not for me. Well, Tim, let me tell you, extraordinary is 2 words. One of them is extra. Quite simply, and it is simple, all you need to do to be extraordinary is to do the extra things that ordinary people don't do. It's not hard. They start work at 8 o'clock, you get there at 7:30. They have an hour for lunch, you have half an hour. That's just one simple example. You know, it's not hard. I say to my salespeople particularly, I've got 120-odd salespeople at a meeting, and I mean this. They can't quite get it, most of them. I say to them, the difference between you and me is not as great as you think.
Yeah. Geez. Well, just so that everyone can frame this, John has just shown as much passion as you could see in someone about what he does. And it's just, thanks a lot for sharing that with us, John. I do think when your employees have that said to them, there's not as much difference between you and me. I think you're at the top of the mountain and you've worked hard to get there and they're aspiring. But what a great bit of encouragement for them to receive. I mean, they must take it and go, wow, a smile on their face.
There's plenty of room at the top, Tim. Huh? Plenty of room at the top. Get up there.
When you talk about that, to develop the trust with your employees and your consumers, I noticed that there was an interesting thing I read around you and driving your own car.
Uh-huh.
I see you did originally drive something that wasn't in your stable, and now and that changed your mind.
Well, before I talk about that, you talk about driving. Bondy, again, Alan Bond, said to me once, never forget this, driving. He said, John, like the engine driver who drives the train from Perth to Fremantle and back. He said, you might be a pretty good engine driver, but all you do is you go from Perth to Fremantle and back. And that night I got thinking I should be buying telephone companies in Chile or Swan breweries or WA newspapers, but I didn't have the ability and I didn't have the money. And all I'm doing still is driving that train from Perth to Fremantle and back. That's all I do. But Tim, I reckon I'm the best train driver in the world. Now, getting back to what I drive, quite some time ago I bought a Jaguar. And my wife and I, on a Thursday night, brand new, my wife and I went to a function that night. We parked the car. Next to it was a chap in an old Mitsubishi Nimbus with 3 young children parking it. He said, Mr. Hughes, I'm a client of yours. He looked at the Jaguar, he looked at me, and he said, why don't you drive what you sell? It was like a dagger in my heart. I thought, he's right. So I went back 8 o'clock the next morning, went back to Alf Barbagallo. I said, I'll take the Jaguar back. I lost $10,000 overnight.
Yep.
And from that day on, I've only driven what I sell. My wife drives a 4-year-old Hyundai Kona. She won't get out of it.
She loves it.
She loves it. I drive a Volkswagen. Joanna drives a Volkswagen. Yeah. Yeah. It was a salutary lesson that I've never forgotten. Yeah.
Oh, it's a wonderful story. Look, there's so many bits and pieces that I'd love to keep asking you about, but I've just got some general questions, John. So how many cars do you think you've sold in your career?
Oh, no idea. I tried to work out how many people I'd spoken to in a business sense, not socially, over the desk in the yards in all the years. You ready for this? How many people I've spoken to?
Yeah.
Face to face?
Yeah.
1 million?
That is huge.
Give or take.
Yeah.
Cars, well, work on, say, 15,000 a year for 70 years. What's that? I don't know. You work that out.
Frightening number. You know, and then you go on and you think, right, well, when you look at that, where do you see the car industry going? Given, you know, here we are at your stage in the career and where your business is. I know there's a bit of competition now with online and versus car yards and that sort of thing, but have you got a view on that?
Okay, well, look, I'll answer that. There's a number of issues there, and I'll cover. First of all, I'm not a visionary.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about a visionary. I used to do a lot of public speaking. I've given 500 or 600 talks over the years, 200 or 300 people there at a time. I'd often say to them, don't put your hand up, but how many of you in the past have faced a problem that was so insurmountable you'd lose sleep over it, you might even get sick over it. And then one day the problem came to the point of your nose, it had either gone away or it was nowhere near as bad as you thought it was going to be. It was incredible, the number of people that nodded their head. So I don't worry about anything over which I have no control. I don't sweat the small stuff. I'm not a visionary. I try not to predict the future because I don't have the ability to predict the future. Nobody does. Much and all, I don't know how many degrees they've got after their name or how expert they are. Nobody does. You don't know. So I wait until I've got to handle the problem, if the problem is still there.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one thing I do.
I know that the vehicles are going into the hybrid electrical vehicle area.
Okay,
What are your views on that?
EVs, fully electric vehicles, are taking a lot longer to be accepted than the manufacturers expected.
Yes.
They got into them too quickly and overproduced. The public are not accepting them because they're pricey, there aren't enough charging stations, They're not as economical to drive as you think they are because they're more expensive to maintain. They're more expensive to insure. I'm not talking against electric vehicles because I sell them.
Yes.
But demand is nowhere near what was expected. Because of that, there's an oversupply. Because of that, the manufacturers are drastically reducing their pricing, which means dealers who are obliged by their manufacturers to take these vehicles.
Yes.
We got no choice. We've got a franchise. Mr. Hughes, you got 10 of these vehicles, you got to take them. We got no choice. We've got to sell them. And to sell them, we've got to discount them, and discounting them means we don't make any money out of them. So EVs at the moment is not a good space. Hybrids, yes.
Right.
Hybrids charge themselves while you're running on. Joanna drives a hybrid, and she loves it.
Yes.
It's got an exhilarating performance. It's eerily quiet, which I don't like. I like a bit of boom, boom, boom. And you've got the petrol engine there if and when you need it. Will EVs come eventually? Of course they will. Price will come down. Lithium batteries, there's a problem with lithium batteries. You hear stories about them catching fire, and it's early days yet.
Still early, yes.
It's early days yet, but it will come, yes.
John, sales. Selling cars is a passion. What about for all the sales guys out there that want to learn a trick or two?
We talked about this in the car on the way down. I get involved in selling cars, closing deals. I do.
Yeah.
Don't be too quick to talk about the deal. Put that off the table. Sit down and talk to your clients. What do they do? Are they retired? What keeps them busy? Do they have any hobbies or interests? I had a chap who makes bird cages.
Yes.
Another chap races pigeons. Another one grows cactus. Imagine standing there all day staring at your cactus. Another one grows desert roses. I've never heard of them before. Have you?
No.
It's a rose that grows in the desert. Boy, did I get him going. Got his, iPad out, showing me his photos on his iPad. I was talking to a couple yesterday, retired couple, Scotch people. He'd come from a family of 12. He'd spent 6 years in an orphanage. Now, there wouldn't have been one salesman in any car yard in Australia would have found that out. All too well, the price is 25,000, 30,000, and we've offered you 10,000 for yours. It's 15,000 changeover. No, put that aside. Talk about them. Was I watching something the other day with my wife? Was it Bezos? Is it Amazon or something?
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Anyway.
Jeff Bezos.
Amazon, Bezos. And he said something that I know anyway. I didn't have to hear it from him. He said, the most important thing in my business, he said, is the customer. You listen to your customer. That's why I take all of my own phone calls. That's why those survey forms, when they come back, you read some out, I read every one.
Yes.
And I would get 4 or 5 a week with people with complaints. Bang, onto it straight away. We fix it.
Yes.
Is that really Mr. Hughes? Yeah. But I only sent it yesterday. It's a common comment.
Yes. Quality customer service.
Customer service, yeah. And there's a whole number of factors. Be passionate about what you're selling. Be very knowledgeable about what you're selling. Be focused, be disciplined, believe in it, but very much get involved with your customers. Ask them questions so you are in a better position to advise them. You're after a hybrid, Mrs. Jones, yes. Can I ask why? Well, my friend's got one and she likes it. Fine. How many kilometres a year do you do? Oh, not many. You see, I've only done... So you're doing about 10,000 kilometres a year. Mm-hmm. How many people do you have in the car with you? Only myself and my dog, I see. So do you really need an SUV? Do you really need to pay the extra 3,000 or 4,000 for a hybrid? you're going to have to keep your car for 6 or 7 years to get the money back on the hybrid. You'd only buy a hybrid if you love the drive. But in your case, I'm not convinced that's necessarily what you need. Well, thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Yeah.
Why don't we look at the options of petrol and a hybrid? Makes no difference to me. Don't regard me as a salesperson. I'm a mentor. I can't swim. I'm a poor tennis player, but I'm very good in the car business. Let me give you my best advice. That's what you do.
And let me guess, John, out of your revenue and your turnover, you've got a large percentage of repeat customers.
Oh, enormous. I've got one family, it's the Smith family, believe it or not. Their name is Smith.
Okay.
49.
49.
Started with the grandfather, Ross Smith.
Really?
Yeah, 49. All the way down the line. Oh, regularly.
Unbelievable.
You know, Mr. Hughes, this is my 10th car, you know, my 4th car, my 9th car. Oh, and you know what? They don't go anywhere else.
You must feel very proud.
I do. And I say to them, and I mean it, people coming back with their 3rd, 4th, 5th or 6th car deserve to get a better deal than someone who comes in off the street for the first time. And I make sure they get it.
Yes.
I do.
Good on you, John. Look, as I say, we could talk forever, but I just wanted to maybe just understand, with your passion for work and your love of what you do, how does it work with work-life balance? And that's a word, that's a terminology that, you know.
I'm very good at that.
Yeah.
I never take work home. I never take calls at home. I never make calls at home. Depends on what you do. I've got an oncologist for what happens to me, and he'll take calls 24/7. I make a point of not doing that because I don't think that's fair. But occasionally my wife will ring him on a Sunday afternoon at 6 o'clock and he takes the call.
Yeah.
I admire that. I don't. I don't need to. Watertight compartments. 8 in the morning, 6 at night, unless the house is burning down, unless there's a serious, really serious something happening at home, I don't want to know about it.
Yep.
I don't care if the house, I care. What can I do if the house is burning down anyway? Go down and put a hose on it?
I love it.
Live your life in watertight compartments. It's hard to do. A lot of people can't. They can't switch off.
And that's why I was asking, because I was quite interested in the way you've...
Yeah, but this thing is a muscle, and you train it just like you train any other muscle. You can do it. A lot of people say, oh, I can't switch off. Of course you can. You can't switch off because you don't allow yourself to switch off. You can do it. Of course you can. I go home at night and I switch off completely. I sit at home, have a gin and tonic with my wife, and we talk about her day, not mine. I never, ever talk business at home. She wouldn't know whether I'd sold 1 car or 1,000 cars. You know, it's her. I talk about her and her life and her golf and her bridge and, yeah.
Oh, it's just wonderful.
It's not hard, really.
No,
it's not hard.
No, you're right. But, you know, as you say, it's
You
more...
only make it hard.
It's a very good insight, and thank you for that. So, John, the last one I was just going to talk about was, and here you are, having started a business way back 50 plus years ago, and what you've seen and where you've started from, what you've grown, your schooling and your experience over time. For the graduates, for the school leavers, for the aspiring John Hugheses of the world, what would you say to them? Because the world's moving pretty fast. In fact, it's breakneck speed. You've got all sorts of things coming online and from around the world that will change the way that kids are able to view things and graduates and things like that. But to become a John Hughes and have a crack, have you got any sort of views?
Look, unless you really know, and a lot of young people I talk to today have got a pretty clear direction as to what they want to be, IT or whatever, do a degree in commerce or something, but don't be too disturbed if you don't find the right niche to start with. You might need to try 2 or 3 different directions before you find the right one. If you've got a very clear goal, you're very fortunate. If, like most, you're not sure as to what you want to do, try a few different directions until you find the one that suits you. And then when you do, go with it with gusto. Don't play with it. I spoke to somebody the other day who's got a large business and a lot of people. I said, "What's your biggest challenge?" He said, "People who get too comfortable."
Yes.
So don't you, people listening to me now, ever get too comfortable. Don't be one of the comfortables. Keep pushing and shoving and daring to be different. Prepare to stand out too. Don't be one of the mob. Be different. That's all the best advice I can give you. Be different. Questions. I remember at the age of 14 or 15, we'd go to the movies. Two movies, half-time interval. We'd go out in the foyer, and all my mates said, I thought, what are they doing that for? Why are they smoking? Oh, to be adult, to be sophisticated, to be growing up, to be accepted. I remember thinking to myself, do I have to do this to be growing up, adult, sophisticated, or accepted? I've had 2 puffs of a cigarette in my entire life.
Yeah.
Dare to be different. Stand out. Don't be one of the mob. Best advice I can give you.
Good on you, John. That's exactly what I was after. I am conscious of time. So I just wanted to finish up by just highlighting. I just want to say thanks for taking the time out to speak with us. I do feel very privileged to be able to sit here and have this chat with you, and you can impart what has been an outstanding insight into your views and your life. I did do a fair bit of research, and this is the sort of conclusion I came up with. You are a standout Australian. You've led the charge in entrepreneurship. You're owning, leading, and immersing yourself in your own business, navigating, directing, marketing, and building value and trust in your company for over half a century. No mean feat. It's Hall of Fame stuff. And I was to probably put some emphasis around that. I was reading the CEO magazine, which was an article written a couple of years ago. There was a great quote in there. I walk my talk and I lead by example. I never go out for lunch and I always eat at my desk. You have to be there, be available to staff and customers, be very hands-on and never lose sight of what keeps you in the business. It's not do as I say, it's do as I do. The other one I found on your website, which I thought just encapsulated it as well. It's focus, passion and discipline that have brought me success. I apply discipline in myself. I apply discipline in my staff. A manager or an owner of a business is a lot like a light switch. In the morning, if you don't turn the light switch on, the place is in darkness all day. It's been an extremely inspiring journey, John, and a massive congratulations on everything you've achieved, your family, your business, your life, your goals, your aspirations. You've achieved them, and hats off to you. So I just want to say thanks.
Can I finish with one more?
You sure can.
People say to me, oh, Mr. Hughes, you're an icon or a guru. I look them in the eye and I say very sincerely, I don't feel like an icon or a guru. I don't. But I say to them, feel proud about yourself inside and be humble outside. That's it. All right?
Great. On behalf of Euros Hartley's Finding the Front, thanks for joining us, John. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoyed that.
Good on you, mate. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Euros Hartley's Finding the Front. This podcast is for general information purposes only. Please check out euroshartleys.com for more information. Euros Hartleys holds Australian Financial Services Licence 230052.